Morning. I'd like to call the July 18th meeting of the West Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency to order. We'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Charlene Hamilton, to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I'll be chairing today. As you can see, and our chair is not available to attend today, so we'll update him through other means. And I'd like to start with the agenda approval, please, if there's a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I'll second that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. And now item 2 is public comments on matters not on the agenda. Is anyone here from the public who'd like to speak? All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to the approval of the June 20th, 2019 meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I approve. I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously as well. We have a report out on our closed session.
The board did meet in closed session to confer with counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and there was action taken. The board authorized mediation with regard to ACOM's claim under change order request number 89.
Thank you so much. That brings us to our item 5, which is review of the monthly and year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Good morning, members of the board. I'll be reporting out on the revenue expenses for the month of May 2019. In Fund 870, our beginning balance was approximately $7.4 million. We received our second installment of our flood assessments in the amount of $2.1 million. Expenses were $145,000, and the ending cash position for Fund 870 was approximately $9.4 million. The starting balance for Fund 871 was negative $10.9 million. Our revenue was a whopping $7.7 million. This is from truing up the eligible costs from quarter 31 and the real estate approvals for Southport. Our expenses were $566,000, and our ending cash position for 871 was negative $3.8 million. Looking at the year-to-date position, our combined cash position for 870 and 871 is approximately $14 million. As of July 11th, 2019, the agency's combined cash position is approximately $16.8 million. The agency received the last $3.5 million portion of our $10 million from Measure V funding. Staff is currently working through the process of closing out the fiscal year 2018-2019 and will accrue revenues and expenditures as part of the process, which may change the final cash position for that fiscal year 18-19. That concludes my report. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
No.
Some good news, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our consent agenda. There are 2 items: consideration of contract amendment 5 with Mark Thomas Company for surveying services for the Southport Levee Improvement Project, and consideration of adoption of Resolution 19-07-01 to apply for California Department of Water Resources grant funding under the Regional Flood Management Program for the Lower Sacramento River Delta North region. So those are our 2 items. Would you like to pull any item for separate consideration?
No.
Is there a motion to approve consent?
I move that we approve consent.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. That passes unanimously. That brings us to our regular agenda, and we have a WSAFCA project update, or updates. Mr. Fabian.
Good morning, Chair Sandine, members of the board. Just want to highlight a few of the items that's contained in your flood program update. As Jen pointed out, our current cash position is a little better than what was reported for the month of May, with the addition of the remaining balance of Measure V funds. And then also, because of the Measure V funds, we'll see in Fund 871, for the first time in a long time, it is not negative.
Yay.
Yeah, so we see if we can keep it that way.
Yes.
For the Southport project, Phase 1 levee project, we're still in closeout. There remains a little bit of work to do related to that project. So our primary focus there is completing the borrow restoration and also the drainage deficiency work. We have asked our design team to separate out plans and specs so that we can get a design package for the drainage repairs or improvements out before the rainy season. We're hoping that we can get that out to bid in early August, and then bring an item to the board to consider in September to award a contract so we can get that work out on the street and get it done before the rains begin. In parallel with that, we're working on the borrow restoration plans and specifications. We do have some borrow material that's identified over at the Eco Water Project at the SRCSD plant. The testing that was performed, we got the results back. It is adequate and suitable for borrow resource. That's good. Staff is working with both the City of Elk Grove as well as the folks over at the Eco Water Project to get all of the terms and conditions squared away to hopefully bring an item to you in the next month or two to approve a purchase agreement, a no-cost purchase agreement that will allow us to secure that material. Also in parallel with that, and in order to be able to use that material, we issued a notice of preparation for a supplemental EIR. The original EIR for the Southport project, although it contemplated the possibility of importing a lot of material,
Right.
it didn't analyze it. So that's what this effort with the supplemental EIR will do, analyzes the impacts, and then obviously whatever required mitigation we'll have to implement. So like I said, the notice of preparation was filed last Friday, and we anticipate getting the draft out in the next 30 to 45 days. And then staff is working with the construction management team to continue to finalize all of the project completion report documentation, as-built, et cetera. Also related to the phase two project for the levy work is the closeout of the cultural resources. I think I've reported out previously that we still have to rebury some of the materials, the isolates that were collected during the course of the project. Right now we're trying to schedule that for mid-August, depending on availability of our consultant team. We have reached out and notified both tribes. They have responded that they've received our request to participate in that activity or that work, but they have yet to commit to providing the resources, so we'll see how it goes. On the Phase 3 restoration project, our contractor, River Partners, is continuing to submit the required submittals for the project. We're still anticipating the first order of major work, which is the installation of the large woody material, in-stream woody material. I think right now we're looking at the second week of August for that to occur. They'll be out tomorrow, Friday, tomorrow, to do spraying for herbicides. And I think from plant procurement standpoint, everything is still moving along as planned. One of the, I think we reported out last time as well that there was a fair amount of sedimentation that occurred at the inlet outlets from this past winter season. The team has met both with the designers, the modelers, the surveyors, as well as the River Partners contractor. And at this point, the plan is to move forward as designed and planned, and then adapt as necessary following the next winter. All right, so moving on to federal project. We have received all of the comments from the Corps' project design team for the scope of work. We are incorporating those comments now. The plan is to get that back to the Corps for back check and closeout. We plan to get it back to the Corps by the end of business this week, and hopefully get the comments closed out by end of next week so that we can get the RFP out on the street. Ideally, the RFP goes out next Friday, and we can bring an item to the board. I think at this point, I'll talk. We'll bring an item to the board as soon as we can, and I'll talk at the end of my report about some options for dates in order to accomplish that. In parallel with that scope of work, we're also providing comments on the Corps project management plan, as well as the design review plan. From the federal financing standpoint, as the board knows, the House has already passed a couple of appropriation bills, including energy and water development. Senate has yet to take up a commensurate bill. I think right now the focus back in DC is on the debt ceiling and getting that lifted, or, so you know how that works. And there's also, I think what we might be able to expect before the August recess, or the most we could expect before the August recess, is raising the debt ceiling and possibly combining that with setting the appropriations limits for the Senate. And then I think what's more than likely going to happen is the Senate will take up bills when they return in the second week of September. So we're starting to flirt with the end of the fiscal year and not having any appropriations bills out, which could result in either partial or full continuing resolutions. Hopefully we don't get there. We need that appropriations bill approved so that we can then rely on the Corps' work plan for programmed additional funding. Right now in the President's budget, we have a recommendation for the $400,000 for additional PED, and as the board knows, we're looking for at least the balance of PED for a total of 3.6, or if all works perfectly, we get the $22.5 million for a New Start construction. And to that end, I'm looking at taking a trip to DC September 9 through 11, where hopefully the Corps will be looking at prioritizing their work plan. So I want to be able to take advantage of their focus on the work plan and go back there and talk about West Sacramento and see if we can provide whatever encouragement or influence we can for us to receive those funds. And then Yolo County Grand Jury Report. The board should have received a copy of the grand jury report. In the grand jury report, there were two sections. One was for missed funding opportunities for WSAFCA, for which WSAFCA is required to respond to some of the findings. There was a 90-day requirement for response. The report was made available to the public on June 28, so essentially we have through the end of September. If the board is not opposed, staff will recommend that we bring an item to the board in August with some options for those responses for your consideration. Also in the grand jury report was an item or a section for LAFCO and the role with the RDs in the city. In that report, WSAFCA was listed or invited to respond. And so I'd be looking for direction from the board today on whether I should include some options for the board on those, if the board so chooses to respond to that particular item.
What do you think? It seems reasonable to respond to both, since we're called out.
Yeah, I think we should respond.
Or at least we could see some, if it doesn't seem, we could see what you draft.
Okay, so if, just make sure we're clear. So the board's direction at this point is to bring draft responses for both sections and let the board decide at the meeting in August.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So speaking about the August meeting, part of, ideally, we're able to get the scope of work for the federal project design and a contract let prior to my trip to DC. One of the message points I would love to be able to share with folks back in DC is we're under design. And so to that end, I would like to ask the board to consider a special meeting in the first week of September, which will give us enough time to get that request for a proposal on the street, receive those proposals, evaluate, and be able to bring a recommendation to the board in advance of that September trip. So if the board is so inclined to entertain that, I would love to hear the board's response and then get it calendared.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm around. That's a good week.
September 5th is a Thursday. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, the week of that, first week of September,
Okay.
September 5th should be fine.
Okay.
I'll confirm with the city clerk on council availability, and I'll send emails out to the board before we calendar it.
Great.
Okay, good.
We'll have to notice that, obviously, as a special
Correct.
meeting. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And I think that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any other questions the board may have.
Any questions?
I guess just one. How long is it expected that the supplemental EIR will take for the borrow material or the?
So we're either going to put the supplemental EIR out for 30 or 45 days, but we're anticipating doing that work in the spring, so there's not necessarily a sense of urgency to get that out. There's really no way that we're going to be able to do it before the rainy season. So the plan at this point is to go through the normal process, receive comments, finalize it, and then get things teed up for a spring contract award. Once it's under contract, we expect it to take about 60 days.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I have one question just about the cultural resources. You mentioned that the tribes were noticed but hadn't yet responded. Does that delay, or what? How does that?
Ideally, we'll have we'll include their participation in whatever, cultural practices they may have or want. As the board knows, there were 2 tribes that
Right.
participated. Part of the complexity is the tribes working together to perhaps share in some practices or otherwise schedule them. They have responded to us that they've received our request and that they're working through scheduling people. One of the tribes actually indicated they're trying to reach out to the other tribe to coordinate.
Okay,
So it is encouraging. Their timeframes tend to be a lot slower than ours. We have another project that's moving forward, the restoration project, which is still on schedule to start planting, this fall. So we need to get this work done prior to, heavy work out there. So
Okay.
we are on a bit of a time crunch, and we have let them know. We'll work as best we can to accommodate their requests, but until they let us know what the request is, we're just going to move forward with
Okay.
scheduling on our own.
and obviously if you need our assistance and some kind of reaching out or whatever, please call on us.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you for that extensive set of updates. All right, that brings us to director's comments.
I don't have any.
I just have one. I'd like to introduce you to my summer intern, Isabel Grassel, who's here today. She's shadowing me at all the meetings. She was at council last night till pretty late and then here this morning. And she just graduated from St. Francis High School and will be attending University of Notre Dame. She heads out next month, about a month from now. And she's studying political science, so in West Sacramento here. So just want to introduce her and thank her for being here. All right, and that brings us to our adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.